Hello my friends, operator Starsky reporting from Kyiv, Ukraine. It's day 627 of the terrible Russian invasion, and yesterday we celebrated a year since the liberation of Kherson from the Russian invaders. Kherson was the only Ukrainian major city taken by the Russian invaders early last year. After just 9 months, the Ukrainian defenders removed the toilet terrorists from Kherson, meaning that the orcs still control 0 out of 22 major cities in Ukraine, after almost 2 years of desperate struggle. The Russian terrorists also remember the day of their defeat in Kherson. That's why yesterday they massively bombed and shelled civilians. 343 shells and rockets were fired at the city. As of this moment, we know about a policeman and 3 civilian women wounded by shell fragments. The desperate Russians keep conducting unsuccessful attacks near Kupiansk, Liman, and Avdiivka. As of yesterday, they've lost 1,100 hobos dead, 32 artillery systems, 2 MLRS, and 32 armored vehicles. If we keep the same dynamics, it means that the Ukrainian defenders will be destroying 300 artillery systems every 10 days, almost 1,000 per month. Of course, the terror Russian army still has quite a few thousand 82mm and 120mm mortars, howitzers, and MLRS. According to our data, the Russian terrorists can keep losing them for 2 more years or so. But in the end, you can pretty much predict how this war ends if it goes this way. Eventually, the giant gas station will collapse, which is inevitable because the Russian economy, with the budget the size of the budget of the state of Texas, became the first victim of the madness of the Russian supremacists and got rolled back to the state of the late 90s. Recently, the Russian internet was blown away by a video where a Russian man congratulated his woman with a unique birthday gift: bread, sausage, and bottle of Coca-Cola.
Хавар, с днем рождения тебя.
Поздравляю.
Да, Масан. Проблем нет, это каждый день могу купить. Без проблем. Вкусно? Так как я кто-нибудь поздравил тебя.
Well, this dude looks like a lucrative potential husband, totally able to upkeep a family. Also, check out the Coca-Cola imported from Iran. As for Ukraine, no matter how hard, the Europe's second largest country can totally withstand this fight, because our desire to live is much stronger than the terror Russian desire to kill us. Also, we shouldn't underestimate the international support, because in 2022 the Ukrainian military budget was already higher than the Russian war spendings. That's another reason why the terrorist army wasn't able to take and control any of the major cities in Ukraine, even when they had such opportunity, and eventually had to withdraw from Kyiv, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Kherson, risking of losing the war completely. The war criminal Putin, also known as Huilo, wanted by the International Crime Court, is desperately searching for the new sources of weaponry. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Russians are buying back the exported weapons and military equipment from Egypt and Brazil. For the same reason, Huilo Putin visited Kazakhstan, trying to convince President Tokayev to provide Russia with weapons and vehicles instead of those that were lost in Ukraine. But the problem is the stupid Russian Borat cannot even pronounce the name of the President Tokayev properly. In August last year, instead of Kasimzhamart Kemelyevich Tokayev, Huilo called him Kasimzhan Kemelyovich, and in January he called him Kemel Zhanayevich. The dude literally needs medication. I mean, I've heard the Dutch have some really good doctors there in The Hague. And because we're inevitably approaching the topic of the Russian cringe, here's a short video of Kadyrov calling to remove the people's houses because their property doesn't look attractive. To all the Western supporters of the Russian terrorism, if you want to live in Russia, make sure to ask Kadyrov how exactly your property should look like, otherwise this property may stop being yours. A bunch of delusional young men were seen calling to find those responsible for losing the Russian-occupied Kherson to the Ukrainian defenders. Do you have any idea who could that be? What is the name of this ugly traitor of the Russian terrorist cause? I have no idea. A cringy video from occupied Kherson showing the Russian billboard saying Russia is here forever. And because Russians always lie, this is how this billboard looks nowadays in the liberated Kherson, saying it's time to return our own. I'm sure the Russian supremacists will totally like this one. The glorious Russia spends billions on the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, its citizens in Voronezh are forced to collect water from puddles.
Еще во вторник из-за ремонта водопровода здесь отключили холодную воду. И вот 2 дня жители скупают ее в ближайшем магазине. Там она, кстати, уже на исходе. И тут такой подарок судьбы – ливень.
Вот так вот и набираем кружечкой ведро, потому что смывать как-то надо. Невыносимо. Но вот сейчас уже невозможно, потому что мы уже тут несколько раз выходили, дождя нет, уже не наберешь и туда.
Holy duck, you know, sometimes I honestly feel kind of cringy showing you all this, because those videos from the Russian media look like some cheap Soviet propaganda about the rotting West, only this time it's about the Russians themselves. Despite being unable to provide the Russians with basic utilities, the Russian supremacists keep dreaming of the world domination. The top Russian propagandist Solovyov threatened again that the Russian invaders won't stop in Ukraine.
Не в территориях, а в безопасности нашей страны.
Совершенно верно.
Нам территория не нужна, у нас территории много. Мы сделали то, что были вынуждены сделать, чтобы обеспечить свою безопасность. Поэтому это не значит, что мы остановимся, условно говоря, у Киева, либо у Варшавы, либо у Парижа. Мы остановимся там и тогда, где и когда сочтем, что обеспечена наша безопасность.
Тогда, когда посчитаем нужным.
Of course, we're perfectly aware that all this is bullshit, because no matter how much the Russian regime hates the West, the Russian supremacists will never strike the European or American cities because they don't want to kill their own kids living and working there. Anyways, meanwhile, the Russian national newspaper published this beautiful title saying, Kyiv reports to the EU, the genocide of the Russians in Ukraine is complete. Dear European brothers and sisters, don't worry, there's still whole Russia for us all to enjoy. The satanic European Jewish gay Nazi expansion will continue, I promise you that. With that, I wish you all a beautiful day. I'm operator Starsky. As always, be safe.